Because we're asking the what of two kinds. What do we have to do ourselves, Rwanda, the continent? And then there is the what that has been answered in other places by other people to get to where they are that we want to be. We have even gone to the extent where we are now being told from outside as to what and how. And the people just go for that because somebody has told you the very circumstances you have explained very well.
Acha, before you answer how, you have to answer what. And I'm not even sure that you have answered the what. So let me give you an example. So we're now talking about the energy transition, which will depend a lot on a number of minerals. Maybe there are 3 or 4, I think. And are you certain that countries owning those minerals are not going to make the mistake which countries exporting oil and gas have not made? I'm not sure about that. So, if we're going to say, this is how we do something, but what are you doing in the first place? So, how do I put this to you? Every single country in Africa I visited, and I visited all of them except one, has a strategy, 30-year strategy, 40-year strategy, all right? You're right, what they fail is on implementation. But often it is because the what itself has not been well thought out. All right? So it is important to answer how, but you must also answer what are you going to do. I'm not certain that in many countries the what has been answered. Okay, just an example. I'll be very short, please. We all know, like my own country, that we are entering this stage 3 of the transition on the demographic cycle. We're entering that phase where the size of the labor force will probably begin to be bigger and bigger, and the number of children and the elderly people getting fewer. They call it demographic dividend, the economists. All right? What is the one thing you have to do? You have to invest in capabilities. People say education. Capabilities, so that, in fact, that labor force is capable, has the knowledge to be able to be usefully employed. But what I've been doing in Africa, we've been targeting numbers. How many numbers are in school? How many children are completing school? But now we need to worry about learning outcomes. What are they learning? What are they coming out with? That is the what question, because the what which was answered was, let us have more children in school. And as in Mali, you look at children coming out of secondary school, they're hardly literate. The what was not answered. The what was not the numbers as inputs. The what was, what are they going to learn? The learning outcomes. And I believe it is such an issue for almost every African country. So we have to ask the question, so what are we going to do? Here in Rwanda, the census showed that, I hope I'm right, 78% of the population, I think, are under 35. I hope I'm right. About 38% are under 15. So we are at that point where we can actually answer that question, i.e., what kind of capabilities are we going to generate in that generation? That is the what. Once we have answered the what, we can decide how. What do we do to make sure that the children come out with capabilities? But if the what, which has been answered as many African countries, is get as many kids to school as possible, that is the beginning to a problem. Now, I'm not saying that there are no implementation issues, or tons of them. Tons of them. Implementation is a problem. But it's important we answer the right question. So I apologize.
Makes sense, and Boris as well, he did mention some of the issues we have, like we have been discussing this and...
Excuse me, maybe it is causing the disruption. I'm sorry about that. I just wanted to ask for the floor to say something. And that is to do with what Acha asked and what Kaberuka answered. I'm not sure something was not lost in between. If I maybe it's me who did not pick it correctly. Even the what and the how, actually in theory, have been answered, or at least people know. And that's what we get from these discussions every time, whether it is here, or Davos, or Addis, or Singapore, or New York, or wherever. We've been places, all of us. And we've been in search of what is it that we can do in Africa to put the transformation journey on track as we wish to. So actually the problem which Donald talked about also is that implementation. It's actually the main issue. You said that you are not saying that there are no implementation issues. Actually, this is the problem. Forget about the how or the what. The how and the what have been answered by you even now on the sitting there in the parliament. They have been answered before, several times, for years. When it comes to doing things, we either do nothing or do the wrong things. That's the implementation. So at first I thought that's what Asharike was alluding to. So how many conferences, how many experts, how many times do we have to discuss what and how? Because we've discussed that for years, for long, for many times. But the question is, when do we get to do what we have even agreed is what is needed to be done? It's implementation. I rest my case.
Thank you, Excellency. Yes, Dr. Celestine.
Clementine, the moderator, is putting me in a difficult situation to try to respond to that. I'm Cameroonian, so I believe in conspiracy theories. So you have something against me. I would still dare say that I'm on the side of Dr. Kaberuka on this one, simply because, yes, we've seen solutions, we've heard ideas at conferences, but many times we also have wrong ideas in the books, and we implement the wrong ideas. So I still think that in some questions, the what is still relevant. What should we do? What should we not do? I see in many African countries, I was very happy among many nice jobs that I had. One of the most meaningful was to be Chief Economist, Vice President of the African Development Bank, because it was for me really the opportunity to serve the continent. I had bigger jobs before that, but that one was so far to me the most meaningful. And I could tell you, Mr. President, that I had interaction with a lot of ministers and prime ministers and presidents who believe in the wrong ideas. So I think that the what, in some situations, is still relevant. Now, There is a former professor of mine who's also my colleague now in Boston called Michael Porter. I've written something in what I call the implementation gap, this question. And he told me, well, he's an expert on strategy. And he says that if you have a good strategy and the wrong implementation, it means that you had the wrong strategy to begin with, and you didn't know that. I said, please explain that again. He said, no, a good strategy should have implementation, strategy, and constraint embedded in it. That you cannot have a good strategy and the wrong implementation. So you need to think about all of them at the same time. Okay. So I just wanted to mention that. Now, quickly, the solution, I think, is to train and build capabilities. And I very much like, again, what Dr. Kaberuka said, which is not just education. It's the relevant type of education, which reflects the needs of the economy, of the society at the given moment. It also means training leaders, but not only leaders, but also training managers. They are not the same things. You sometimes have leaders who have the vision to have these ideas in mind, to really have different type of skills that will be needed. Thank you.
I still have an issue, because not only have these things been discussed, the what and the how, we also not only have experience of places where this gap has been bridged. We have references to make in different parts of the world how things have happened. So that means the what, to an extent, has been answered. Because we're asking the what of two kinds. What do we have to do ourselves, Rwanda, the continent? And then there is the what that has been answered in other places by other people to get to where they are that we want to be. So, of course, countries have different contexts. But this does not preclude the point I'm trying to make. Saying, then you learn from the experience of other places who have answered the what in their context. That brings you closer to understand the what in your context. And therefore, do it. Therefore, what I'm saying, and really what I thought Hacha was also referring to, whether it is answering the what or the how, cannot remain in perpetuity as a question being asked without coming to a closure of saying, my what, to my problem, my how, to deal with the problem is this one. Because I have learned from other experiences, even of different contexts, but I have been hearing, I have learned from my own experience as to what and how. You know, we have even gone to the extent, precisely something you covered as well here on the panel. We have even gone to the extent where we are now being told from outside as to what and how. And the people just go for that because somebody has told you the very circumstances you have explained very well. So we have to sit back and people walk to our countries, but they come by air by ship. Or they did that long ago. But they tell people, you must do this, you need to do this. And in fact, tie that to the money or the means they are giving you to be able to do that. And people have shifted their minds from what they actually know that should be done, that we have discussed and debated, to what they are being told they must do, because they need that money that comes with it to implement it. So there is something lacking on our side in terms of ownership of ideas, or even learning to do what we have already learned that works elsewhere. This is why I had to push back a little bit. Take more of your time. Since I missed the morning sessions, I'm trying to compensate this one. The ownership still comes back to the ownership of what? The ownership of how? You always come to that. But let me tell you just a simple story. We have in, all kinds of stories in our traditions and so on and so forth. Even animals learn. There is a story here in Rwanda about the leopard. The leopard went for the kill of the animals, the herdsmen and women in Rwanda. So it tried to kill a calf, and people heard noises and went and saved the calf. So they went back to the house and they were celebrating the calf survived, and they started talking to each other, and the leopard was still nearby, behind the hut, listening. And the people said, inside the hut were saying, you know, if this leopard had gone for the neck, we wouldn't be having our cow. So from that time, the leopard went for the neck. And every time it goes for the kill, it gets its kill. So how can we be there listening to what makes the kill and we don't do it? That's the summary of it anyway, so thank you for...
Thank you, Your Excellency. I would like to ask Dr. Donald to kind of summarize and close out the session for us. Give us some of your thoughts on the final position on this, because it's a hot debate. How do we go about it?
That's a big job for me. I'm not sure I'm the right person to do that. But let me say this. I fear now that because of the weakening of our economies during COVID period, because of this synchronized crisis which has happened around the world, around us, our economies have become so weakened, that, for example, a country in West Africa, please no names, which was the first one to go to the IMF and begin general economic reforms, is back to the IMF today. Please no names. Why? A combination of domestic indiscipline, macroeconomic indiscipline, and these external shocks. So as a result, they have lost what I call political space, fiscal space, policy space. The decisions they're now implementing are not their decisions. Why? Because during the days when things were very good, they did all the wrong things. They ticked all the wrong boxes. Massive borrowing, for example. Massive spending. Huge levels of the deficit. Without building the resilience for when the days will be difficult. I can think now about 14 countries in Africa who are in that phase. So the first thing I think our message we're passing is that restoring that degree of economic independence begins by economic discipline. When you lose that discipline, you lose that ability to implement your own policies. This is what Carlos is saying. Number two, you have to exercise that discipline with a lot of equity, social equity. What is bringing many of our countries down is that in terms of getting things done, a lot of inequities are implemented. So you have sections of society who feel frustrated, so they check out.